Hey guys, it's Geography Lover here. Welcome back to another brand new video. And today we're looking at the War of the Roses, which occurred from 1461 to about 1485, and this was in medieval England. So let's get started. So this is the family tree of the War of the Roses. It starts with Edward III, King of England. He had 4 sons that we care about. Actually, he had 5, but we only care about 4. His eldest son was Edward, the Black Prince. His second son was Lionel. His third was John of Gaunt. His fourth was Edmund, and his fifth was Thomas, but we don't care about Thomas in this one. When Edward III died, the throne should have went to his eldest son, but he was already dead, so it went to his eldest grandson, Richard, who became King Richard II. You may know him from the famous Shakespeare play. Richard II was murdered by his cousin Henry, who became King Henry IV after Richard's death. Even though his cousin, Phillipa, had a son and a grandson who was actually the grandparents of Edward IV and Richard, the son of Richard of York, but we'll get into that later. Henry IV was the illegitimate king, and he had a younger sister named Margaret Beaufort who had a descendant, but we'll get into that later. Henry IV ruled until 1413 to his death. You may know him as well from the famous Shakespeare plays Henry IV Part 1 and Henry IV Part 2. He had a son, Henry V, who was also a famous Shakespearean king. He won the Battle of Agincourt, and he was also king during the 100 Years' War against France. When he died, he forced the French king, Charles VI, to marry his sister, Katherine of Valois, and together they had a son, Henry. He then died 6 months later, and little baby King Henry was declared King Henry VI at 6 months old. He ruled until 1461, when his cousin Edward IV wanted to take the throne back from him because he thought he was the rightful king due to his claim that his mother, Anne Mortimer, who was a descendant of Phillipa's kid, Roger, was with a more senior claim than Henry's illegitimate claim through his father, John of Gaunt. Henry VI and Edward IV battled it out until Henry VI was killed in 1471, and Edward IV was declared officially king in 1471. So the throne went back and forth. Then after Henry VI's death, Edward IV was officially declared king in 1471. And after he died in 1483, the throne unofficially went to his son Edward V, who was never coordinated as king, and his uncle Richard, also a famous Shakespearean play, Richard III, was declared king, and his young nephews, Edward and Richard, were both murdered in the Tower of London. Richard III was then declared king, but his cousin, Henry Tudor, who was the son of Catherine, was the grandson of Edmund Tudor, who was the son of Owen Tudor and Catherine of Valois, that's his grandfather, who was also a descendant of Margaret Beaufort through John of Gaunt. Remember, I said that we were going to get back to that later, who was a Lancastrian, versus the Yorkist Richard III. His niece, Elizabeth of York, who was Edward IV's daughter, married Henry Tudor after Richard III's death in the Battle of Bosworth Field. Henry Tudor then was declared King Henry VII, and the new Tudor dynasty was established. So this was King Richard II. He married Anne of Bohemia, who had no children, and Isabel of Valois also had no children. He ruled for 22 years. Then Henry IV, whose wife was Joan of Navarre. He had 2 children, Henry and Phillipa, and he ruled for 14 years. Henry V, whose spouse was Catherine of Valois, he only had 1 son, Henry VI, and he only ruled for 9 years. Henry VI, who ruled for 41 years, counting both reigns, his wife was Margaret of Anjou, and only had 1 son, Edward, who died after Richard III murdered him. He ruled for 41 years. Edward IV, whose wife was Elizabeth Woodville, who had a interestingly marriage, as people think that him and his children were illegitimate due to him having a secret first marriage, but we don't know if that for sure. He had 3 children, Edward, Richard, and Elizabeth, who was the mother of King Henry VIII. He ruled for 17 years, including both of his reigns. Edward V, who only ruled for 2 years, didn't get married since he was murdered at the age of 13 with his brother. Richard III, who married Anne Neville, the wife of Edward, Prince of Wales, the son of King Henry VI. He had 2 children, Edward and Katherine. Both were killed after the Battle of Bosworth Field and only ruled for 2 years. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.